Antonio, it is absolutely wonderful to see you today. How are you?
I'm so happy to be here with you, Maria. It's just, I love to listen to your podcast, all what you do. So I'm so happy that we got together again. So really looking forward for this talk.
Fantastic. So what people won't know, and I'm going to fill them in because it's a lovely story. You were the very first guest I ever had when I did a podcast. That was back in March 2018 is when it went out. We actually recorded it earlier than that. I think we recorded it in probably the December of 2017 when I had a terrible cold and a terrible bad voice. And you were wonderful. You were such a good, kind guest. So thank you for launching me into this world. Appreciate it. You didn't put me off by being my first. And actually that came as a result because I had seen you at a wonderful gala dinner where you received an award. I'm going to ask you about the award in a moment, but the thing that shocked me and most of the audience was that you had cut your honeymoon short to come and receive this Thinkers 50 award. So 4 years later, has your wife forgiven you?
Well, glad you remember that, Maria. Indeed, we were in Argentina, in Patagonia. It was not like an hour from London. So it was like in the other side and it was tough, but I had good chances to win this award from Thinkers 50. So she understood at the time. She still remembers once in a while that she did a big sacrifice and I've taken her around a few other times to compensate. But
fantastic.
Nice.
Fantastic. And what was that award? Remind me, because you actually won it.
Yeah, it was Ideas into Practice from Thinkers 50, one of these special awards. So really, really happy for that.
And thank goodness you won it, because otherwise I think you would never have heard the end of it. And what an understanding woman. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about projects, because obviously you are an expert in project management and in strategy. But for most organizations, I think almost everybody has a project that they're working on. But how did you first get interested in this area?
Well, Maria, very briefly, two big moments in my career. At the beginning, when I started working, I was just an order analyst, processing orders for a technology company. And suddenly someday one said, we're launching this new project. It's about a shared service center. So you need to travel, you need to learn, you need to teach, and say, oh, I want to volunteer. And I suddenly got into this project without knowing anything. And I love that. I really loved the work of being in a project because it was really different. Every day was different. I was meeting new people. Oh, as opposed to my day-to-day job, we were just processing data and sending facts at the time, you know. And the other side of when I was busy with the project was great. I was learning, I was teaching, I started to teach. So that was the key moment. I really enjoyed the type of work in a project based, so diverse, so changing, so challenging. The second big moment was when I was fired because senior leaders didn't appreciate the value of project management. They say, what's project management? We cannot invest in that. This is not a high-end consulting service. This is cheap. Anybody can do that. Is tactical, is boring, bureaucratic. So that's where I said, well, I need to change that. I cannot accept that senior leaders don't appreciate the value of projects and project management. So two big points there in my career. One more fun, the other one's a bit less, but big influence for me.
It's interesting that comment you made. I mean, obviously you've talked about being fired and we've talked about it before. We won't dwell on that, but I think it's interesting how many people go on to, find a new and very successful path after being fired. So I think well done for you. You made the statement, project management and the view that people thought anybody can do that. Can anybody really, manage a project? Would you say? What skills does it take?
Well, Maria, yes, everybody's managing projects, but they're not prepared, they're not trained. So that's the challenge. That's what I'm trying to help organizations at every level. There's senior leaders who don't know how to sponsor a project. They do their best, everybody does their best, but they don't have the fundamentals. They don't have the right tools to do that, as well as managers and individuals, entrepreneurs, nonprofits. So my mission is to make sure that first I simplify project management, because one of the things that I found is trying to discover why senior leaders didn't like project management, because it's super complicated, right? If you want to learn project management, you need to read a book of 700 pages. Who's going to read that, right? So there's no one simple framework that could be used in any type of project, any kind of environment. So that has been one of my mission in the last year, simplification, so that everybody that is doing projects, which is everyone, can have an easy way to understand the fundamentals. And yes, once you have the basis, once you know how to drive a project, you can be much more successful. So it is possible. Everybody can learn these skills.
I love that you're making it simpler, because I think everything is so complex in our world.
Yeah.
And we're overwhelmed, aren't we? So the fact that you simplify, and when you think about the term project management, you think about these huge technical things, but actually any project where you actually have a time scale and a time frame and a goal where you want to get somewhere, it's a project, isn't it? And you can apply what you teach to it. So anybody who has a goal of getting from A to B can apply your teachings. Is that right?
Absolutely, Maria. Exactly. If you're an individual, you're a student, you're a startup, it's getting from a place to another one. It's changing the things that you produce or you sell, is reorganizing your business. Any digital transformation, it's a program, it's a project. So yes, I think one of the things that is very different now, and is what I call the project economy, Maria, is that in the past, change around the world happened slowly. Yeah, it didn't happen, but now it has accelerated so much that the product life cycle, whatever you're selling, the duration where you can sell it is much shorter. Then the competition will come with something similar, cheaper. So that means that companies need to constantly launch more products, more services, much faster than 10, 20 years ago. That's why many companies today, this is a funny story, but not so funny. Many companies that I talk today, Maria, they have more projects than employees, and they still have to do their job.
Wow. And so every time you launch a product, it's really a project. And every time you create a new, you have a digital transformation, it's a project. So I think we need to sort of think about, so it's interesting because we probably don't think about projects in that way. That's interesting. I like that. So what is this project economy then?
Well, I can make it very simple. I think on a macro level around the world, all this investment that the public sector is doing, governments to re-energize the economies and rebuild healthcare and rebuild economies, this is leading to a massive amount of public funding to recover the world recently. So these are all projects that we're seeing. This is trillions of US dollars being spent in recovery. My focus is more on organizations. And there's a big change, Maria, that we've not seen in the last 50 years, which is the type of work that companies and individuals are doing in the companies is shifting from operations based, where you have a job description, right? Companies, they have job description for people to tell them, this is what you need to do for the next 3 years. This is what you need to focus. This is shifting because artificial intelligence is taking over many of these operational tasks. So most of the people now are working in project-based type of work. That means we work in this project for 6 months. We don't know what's going to happen later, to the point that companies are canceling job descriptions. This is companies that might have 100,000 of job descriptions because they see people are working on projects, and projects last 6 months, 9 months. So just to make it even more simple, more clear, Maria, when I have interviews with media or so, they tell me, so it looks like the gig economy, right? Where you have small projects, people working in projects. I say, exactly like the gig economy. The only difference is that in the gig economy is happening outside your company, right? It's people working independent in a project. Once the project is over, they move on. What happens here is the gig economy happens in the companies, right? So that means that people are working in a gig economy within their organization. They get into a project, they finish the project, they move to another project. So that's the project economy, like the gig economy within your company.
I like that. That's really interesting. And I like the idea. I actually like the idea that you don't have a really structured job description, but maybe your job description is that to be a team player and to, to be good at problem solving, or to be flexible or open-minded, creative, as opposed to saying, these are the to-dos. So it's more like who you are, I suppose, and what your skill. That's fascinating. And I do like that, the way you've explained it, the gig economy inside your organization. And I can see that because, my organization is very small now, but we do have projects and we do sort of manage those projects. Probably we're not big enough to employ you, but if we understood the project management side, we'd probably be very much faster at, is that the big advantage, to achieve results faster if you manage them properly? Or is it something else? What's the big benefit of managing?
It's a great question, Maria. Again, you're so good doing the podcast, because your questions are really going to really deep. So there are different benefits. Of course, we want that projects are successful. Projects bring more value to the company, to the society, to the individuals. There's no doubt. And one of the things that I'm really upset and I want to change and I'm fighting is success rate in projects is very poor. It's appalling. It's like 3 out of 7 projects succeed. So 70% failure rate, which is unbelievable, right? When I talk to the project management community, this is unacceptable. We need to change that. So doing projects better is key. But the other big thing that happens here, people don't get overwhelmed when they had operational activities. They knew they had the job description. They knew that their work was that. Where they get overwhelmed, the great reset, is because you're adding projects after project after project to the people, and they get overwhelmed because they don't know which project they need to work. Everything seems too urgent. So for me, the reason for this big resignation is because they've not managed this change in terms of from operation work to project-based work. So I think one big benefit when you have priority clears, when senior leaders do their job in prioritization, in selecting the right projects, in allocating the resources to the most important project, is that the people feel more happy, right? They are engaged, they're happy to go to work. I always say, Maria, when I talk to CEOs, is what is the one project that make your people proud and make them come happy to your organization? And they say, well, this digital transformation, this doesn't make people proud. So you have a problem, right? So projects is about really providing a purpose to people going to work. Purpose without a project is nothing, right? It's just words. So you need purpose, absolutely, but you need a project that will get you to the purpose. And that's where I think the other big benefit that I'd like to share, and really, I think this works.
I like that, because purpose is so important. I mean, it's important anyway, but at least we're talking about it now and everybody's talking about it. But the purpose without a project, because how do you live it? And the fact, that the people need to feel proud. I like that statement too. That is so important. I suppose some of this comes back to sort of the strategy work that you do, because surely until the strategy is set, every project will be a priority because we don't know strategically where we're going, right? So is that the starting point, that you have to do the strategy thinking first before you even embark and decide what projects are needed?
Absolutely, Maria. I think there's where I think we are in a rush, like everything is so fast. And one of the challenges with projects is funny a bit, but one of the things that humans like is kickoff meetings, right? We love to start things. So I always say, how difficult is to start a project? Nothing, it doesn't cost. Just call a kickoff meeting and everybody will be there. And the people who you don't invite to the kickoff, they will be upset because everybody wants to be there, right? But then who comes to the second meeting when you start to do the work? Half of the people say, I'm too busy, sorry. So I think you can make a big difference when you connect strategy, like you were saying, say, okay, we want to enter that market. We want to transform our business like this way. Digital transformation is important for us because of this is where we want to go. And that will be already a natural selection of which of the projects you should go, which one you should not go. And just to give you a number, I'm almost sure that most of organizations, you can cancel 50% of the projects. We're talking about 400, 500 projects in one shot, nothing will happen. 50% of the projects, you cancel them from today to tomorrow, nothing will happen. The company will continue.
That's interesting. I was going to ask you for numbers, actually. you read my mind.
Yeah.
And I don't suppose there's a guide on how many projects as an individual you can look after. I suppose it depends on each individual, what business you're in and how big the projects are, I suppose. So I can't ask you that question. But there must be, again, a maximum before you become overwhelmed, I suppose, yes?
Yeah, well, my recommendation is to have 2 maximum. If it's a strategic one, just one, Maria, I've done research of thousands of projects. The most successful have 100% dedicated resources. So, okay, this is our big bet. The iPhone. What happened with the COVID, the vaccine? It happened because some people work, the best team got together and worked just 100% on that. So there is no doubt about the more dedication, the better the chances of success. The better the team that you put in the project, the more chances of success. And one very important, that's why I talk a lot to senior leaders and do work with companies and keynotes, is us senior leaders. They don't know that, and they don't make the time to be in a project. If you ask people in a project, when was the last time you saw the CEO of the company in your project? Say, never. Why? Because senior leaders have to be involved in the most important projects, and not just 1 hour per month. I'm talking about a few hours per week, and they're not prepared. So there's a lot of work that I do with senior leaders to transform that culture, to help them to get better, and making that connection of strategy, project, and allocation of resources is the most important part to be successful in projects.
Okay, so really important point that senior managers need to be involved, and actually that makes sense. And I like the statement that, you know, to have one, if it's an important project, it should be just that one, and you put all your eggs in that basket and all your focus. And we've got the best case study ever, haven't we, with the COVID vaccine? It's an amazing case study. So I get that. And so, yeah, that makes total sense to me that everybody focuses, and it is about focus, isn't it? So yeah, organizations could potentially cut a lot of their projects. As part of this, though, do you think that when we're looking at projects and when we're managing them, and I think you've alluded to it, in project management itself, that project management can be overcomplicated. People who aren't project managers, but who are managing projects and transformations in an organization, do you think they overcomplicate things too? Do we have that natural tendency as humans to make things too complex?
I think so. I think simplicity creates kind of a bit of doubts. No, it's natural. I'll always put this example. Imagine you're the boss of a company and you have somebody doing the project for you, and you have two projects. One project manager comes with a report of 200 pages saying, okay, this is the status of the project, 200 pages. Another project manager comes with 1 page. Naturally, you will think, okay, the person with the 200 report will be more in control, right? This is wrong, but this is what we've been working. And that's why I think we overcomplicate, because we think, well, it looks like we're more in control. I feel more in control. I'm pushing to the other one. I think I just need 1 page on your project, but I want to have a good discussion around it. I want to know what's not working. I can teach Maria, anybody, in half an hour to look at the project and know whether it's good or not, if it's going to fail or not. In half an hour, I can do that. I do that with many organizations. Just this an eye-opener, because it's just straightforward, and say, well, if you have more reds than greens, stop the project, don't continue. So it's just scary to simplify things, but then I do believe that this is the way forward.
I also think that simplification isn't easy. And I think somebody who's written 1 page opposed to somebody who's written 200 has pulled out the essence and the important aspects within those 200 pages. And it's actually probably takes longer to write that 1 page than it has to take to write the 200 that hasn't. So I completely get that. And I know that, you know, speakers often, when they're asked to speak for 15 minutes and they're used to doing a longer speech, it's so much harder for them to drill down to get that essence that the client needs to hear. Totally get that. So is this what you talk about when you talk about your less is more approach?
Absolutely. Less is more in projects. We need less projects, but better. Really makes a big difference. Cut 80% of the project. With the pandemic, Maria, you were referring to that. Companies cut 90% of the projects in a week. Did something happen? No. And we started to work remotely, and everybody focused on 1 or 2 projects to keep the company alive and come back. And so we did that. So I'm saying the same. Less is more in terms of projects. Less is more in terms of methodologies and approaches. One of the things that I provide new, Maria, also in my speeches, in my work, is that there has been a huge debate between agile methods, right? It's agile, it's simple, it's light. There's no document. With the more traditional project management, which tends to have a lot of documentation, I say, Well, we actually need both. You cannot disregard agile. You cannot disregard the other type of project management. So I'm proposing and promoting a different way of looking at projects using all these methods, because we need them all, not just agile and project management, but continuous improvement, change management, product development. So I really embrace them all in a simplified way, because that's what I think makes companies successful. That's the competencies of the future.
Excellent. That statement that you can in half an hour tell people whether a project is going to fail or succeed, I think it's worth bringing you into an organization just to do that, to go through all the projects. I think you'll be fully booked just on that statement. I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
So we've run out of time. So my final question to you, you mentioned that you have spoken to a lot of senior executives who are responsible, for the projects, and you've said that perhaps they don't spend as much time as they should. Is there anything else that those who really do succeed, do right, that might make or break, make the project as opposed to break the project, I should say? What do the guys that do it right do?
Well, one thing is understanding the fundamentals, the sponsors, understanding the fundamentals. Second is prioritization, the connection with the strategy, and then clearly one or two projects coming from that. The other very important, we touched on that, Maria, was a bit the resources. So companies are very much into these structures and cultures. And so the best project sponsors or leaders, what they do is they extract the team who's going to work on a digital transformation project, and they put them aside. So we cannot change an organization with all the complexities in a week or in a month to make us projects better. So I've seen extracting the best people in a project, putting them into the project to work on it full time. So they have the courage to say, hey, listen, you're the best in what you're doing. I know you have an operational job, but I need you. So join me for 2 years to develop this project. And the person says, but who's going to do my job? I have a team of 200 people here in marketing. Don't worry, that's the easy part. Anybody can do your job in operations, right? But we need you and your talent to work in this crazy team to develop the future of our organization. And that's what I miss. I don't see senior leaders taking the courage of extracting the resources and creating a high-performing team with the best people for the most important project.
Okay, so you've got to create the high-performing team with the best people, which makes absolute sense. Absolute sense. Antonio, it's been a pleasure to catch up with you. Give my best to your lovely lady wife, and I hope you've enjoyed yourself. Always, Maria. I could go on forever talking to you. Thank you for thank you for your podcast. It's great. I think it's the best by far in this space. So thank you. Thank you so much. So thank you everybody for listening to The Speaker Show. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating on Apple Podcasts. You can keep up with future episodes on the Speakers Associates website, which is speakersassociates.com, or your favorite podcast app. Make sure you grab a copy of the Harvard Business Review Project Management Handbook, because it's full of amazing, amazing advice there. We touched on very little there in our 20 minutes. And if you would like to invite Antonio to come and speak with you at your next conference, please contact Speakers Associates in plenty of time to book him so that you're not disappointed. I will see you all next week. Bye-bye for now. Thank you.